ridiculous exams. His brain scans are negative and the doctor can't diagnose the dreams properly, so he asks for some details. George says that for the last month he's been dreaming about being his ancestor George Washington, so the doctor explains that dreams can cause instability and pain but they aren't real, so he shouldn't talk about them. When George returns home, there's a guide showing some tourists what used to be the president's home and she hurts George by saying he chose an average calling unlike his ancestor. Afterward George goes inside and this time Michelle does greet him, but it's only because she's following her book on how to be happy. After dinner, George watches TV while overeating and learns of new symptoms related to exploding. No desire to do the dirty, difficulty sleeping, feeling life is meaningless, suffocation, and fantasizing about being somewhere else. Feeling called out, George changes the channel and watches a silly action movie with a guy who saves the world and gets the girl at the end. When he finally gets in bed, Michelle wants to get naughty and reveals she's brought some toys. However, George isn't interested and Michelle apologizes, asking him not to explode. During the weekend, George tries to relax while doing his usual hobbies, like sailing and golf. However, he never manages to actually have fun. On Monday, George plays the orientation video to their new co-worker Steve, reminding him to forget about himself and work his life away. Even the US president appears at the end of the tape to show his support for the company. While everyone is trying to work, Steve starts eating a raw hamburger, which makes Cindy complain. George explains to her that the man passed the test so there's nothing he can do about it. Steve overhears. He shares that he went from level 2 to level 3 after spending some time in jail. This makes everyone uncomfortable but they must endure it. At that moment Charisma calls George to check if his medical exam went well and sends him today's workload with a new post-it. When George goes home, Michelle has invited a pair of missionaries, who tell him explosions happen when people listen to Satan. George ignores them and checks on his son to scold him for ordering fantasy books that may stir up chaos, but the boy still doesn't answer. Suddenly, George notices someone screaming and running outside and it turns out to be his brother Julian. He explains he used to feel like a king in his job in level 5 but after he had a dream of his groin being replaced